Hello, everyone. Welcome into our latest live broadcast. It's Friday. It's a Friday. It's the 22nd of August, 2025. My name is CareyHolzman, and today we've got a mini PC for you to review, and this is on sale. This is a budget-level priced mid-grade, mid-tier PC. What do I mean by that? Usually within about the $150 range, you can expect to get budget level, entry level PCs. These are your most basic PCs, typically N100, N150 kind of processors, very limited with the amount of upgrading you can do. Single channel RAM only, no more than 16 gigs of RAM will be used by the system. And they're actually really, really good for doing regular everyday tasks. I mean, what most people use a computer for, they excel at. So, you know, when we go up to the next tier, we get into the mid-level. Those are usually $300 to $500 to $600. And then above the $600 range, you've got the high end. And then from about $600 to about $900, that's high end, enthusiast level. And then above that, you have your gaming PCs. Those are your most expensive computers that consumers can buy. So gaming PCs typically start at $900 and go upwards to $5,000 depending on how you equip them. So today, what we're looking at is a mid-range PC at a budget level price, at least while the sale is on. So that really piqued my interest because I always want to make you guys aware of any deals that are out there. They're often not around very long, the deals. And basically, I feel like if I kept this to myself and I didn't share that with you, I feel like I would be doing you a great disservice. Now, whether or not I recommend this PC for any particular viewer, I don't know you guys personally, most of you, so I can't say, but I will provide you with as much information, both positives and negatives, that I can, and allow you then to make the decision that's right for you. I want to shout out a thank you to our friend Dennis Hill, who contributed a $50 PayPal contribution just before the show. I also want to thank our friend Buster with an Amazon gift card just prior to the show. And also during a show the other day, a very generous contribution from Buster and also from Frankie B. So again, a thanks to you guys, as well as, of course, our friends Lou Greenia and Mark Gaines, who contribute regularly here to keep us up and running despite the lack of any advertising we have here is basically zero. And the only reason we're able to bring this video to you for free today is a combination of both the members and this company, Wowie, sending the PC at no charge. However, they are not paying us for this content. So we are free to say exactly, you know, to call it as we see it. And that shows the confidence in the manufacturer that they're not afraid that we're going to find anything, you know, too terrible or anything terrible at all. I don't know, but they're obviously confident enough that, you know, there's no non-disclosure agreements. There's no show it to us first before you show your audience. We don't do any of that stuff here, guys. When companies demand that, we just tell them to walk. If we're interested in their product and they want to play those games like Ugreen did, we just bought the Ugreen NAS and reviewed it ourselves, and it was so bad, for me anyway, I sent it back to Amazon for a refund. Now I see why they were trying to cover things up. So we don't play by those games. Other channels, they're in it to make money, and you can't blame them. They just want to make money. And if the channels don't make money, you don't have a channel. Somebody's got to pay the bills. So with our members and cooperation of companies that have enough confidence in their product that they send it to us for review, we continue to be able to provide free content to the world, not just to our members. Or the members aren't getting the free content, the members are getting the content they're paying for. And with that, let me say hello to everybody joining us here in the chat room. Let's see. JMel31 is a new supporter. Welcome in. Thank you for supporting us. Stephen Miller says hello. There's our friend Rick Lakes with a $10 super chat. Very nice. Thank you, Rick. I hope you're doing well. Let's see. Wazbus says he heard a new release of Windows 11 Lite LTSC. Look, you guys can use any virus operating system you want to. I don't care. You'll never see me or any professional using that outside of a corporate environment with an official IT department. You're really playing with fire with it, so knock yourself out if you want to do that. I'm not aware of any professionals outside of a corporation with hundreds of employees that would even so much as consider that. It's profoundly dangerous, but you know, so is playing in traffic, and I won't stop you from doing that. I'll advise you not to. That's about all I can do. Let's see, who else do we have? Oh, Wazbus with a $10 super chat. Right on. Thank you for that, Wazbus. Let's see. And just to clarify, when I worked at these big corporations, those corporations control their operating system. They control what updates and what releases, and at some point even create their own. This is not for a home user. The operating system is so bare that it leaves it very, very exploitable. If you're going to connect a computer with that operating system onto the internet and you do not have a professional IT department, well, then I suggest you don't use it. Use the regular version designed for that use that Microsoft sells and Microsoft supports. If you don't want Microsoft support, you don't want any feature updates, you don't want anything, you just want to be vulnerable and leave me alone, you could just put Windows XP on the machine and get the same effect. So, all right. But thank you for the contribution. I appreciate your question. Eddie Casanova says hello, and Jonathan Fells joins us and says hello. There's our friend Mark Gaines and John Williams. There's Scott. Of course, Mara is hanging out in there. Thomas Mac T saying hello, and James Steinbrecher says hello. There's also, I'm going to have to get my glasses out today. Caniac says hello from North Carolina. Welcome in. Michael Lavelle says hello. Andy W6AD joining us. Ben Laird from Scotland says hello. Gary Bickle says hello. There's Dennis joining us. Welcome in, Dennis. Thank you again for the PayPal contribution. Showman 2000 and Jim Kenny are joining us here, along with Proteva. Craig Casabona with a $20 super chat. Thank you, Craig. He says, I built an AMD Ryzen 7 9800X3D with an ASRock B850 live mixer Wi-Fi 7. It's great and fast. It has onboard AMD graphics built right into the CPU. Thanks. So it's a good system. Yeah, nice part selection. Uncle Carey approves. HDDMI says hello. Welcome in. There's Buster saying hello to everybody from Bonnie, Scotland, where the temperature in Edinburgh, 56 degrees Fahrenheit or 13.3 degrees Celsius. Right on. Thanks for checking in, Buster. Good to see you, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Ron Barnish says hello. Lou Greenia joins us from Vermont saying hello. Dazzle555 and Phil Stodd also joining us saying hello. 55 Staying Dude says hello. All right. We got a full house. Right on. Love it. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. So the mini PC we're looking at, let me show you the Amazon page, and then we'll do our unboxing. You know, these are all live and unscripted. I've never opened this box before. We'll see what's in the box. Does it arrive with any damage? I'll be honest, we very rarely get anything damaged. It's been pretty much since the pandemic. All the quality control has just gone through the roof. Everything is so good now, and it's so solid. It still happens that we get something damaged, but we're so confident it's so unlikely, we just film it live and show you. So you don't have to have that anxiety. What if I get one that's broken? Also, if you order from Amazon, you have 30 days of free returns, and the return doesn't have to have any reason. Your reason could be, I changed my mind. Amazon will take it back. They don't care. They'll give you 100% of your money back. And the cost of the return, zero. Zero to send it back, 100% of your money back. So if you're still on the fence, then just get one and play with it, because until you have it in your hands, you may not really understand where the value is or where the value isn't, depending on what your values are. what your expectations are versus reality. So this way you can experience it without any sort of concern that it's a one-way ticket. It's not sold as is. All sales final. Not if you buy it from Amazon. All right, so just keep that in mind. If you're curious, the best way to solve that curiosity isn't by watching videos, it's by having actual hands-on experience with a safety net that if it all just doesn't turn out the way you like, you just send it back and it didn't cost you a penny. All right, so I was going to mention something else. Oh, a little bit of talk about Windows 11. I think Windows 11 has single-handedly put out of business more computer repair shops than any other technology with regards to computers. I have never in my life seen more computer repair shops gone. And what it appears has happened is Windows 11, that requirement of Windows 11 is removing from the environment computers that would regularly need service. By the time they're 10 years old, they're pretty much all going to be due for service, especially if they've never had service before. And repair shops used to make a lot of money from people that stubbornly refused to get rid of old computers. And I mean, I've seen it myself. I've made a lot of money from it myself, trying to convince a customer to replace something and they don't want to. They don't like anything new and they want to keep the old thing. And you end up paying as much for keeping the old thing alive temporarily than just biting the bullet and getting the new thing with a warranty. And then, of course, they don't have to wait on a repair or hope the repair was done right when you get something new. So by Microsoft forcing their hand and saying, we're going to stop supporting Windows 10, you're going to need Windows 11 and you need a computer that can run Windows 11, it's removing from the market a lot of older computers that are overdue for service. And the Windows 11 operating system is the most stable, rock-solid operating system Microsoft has ever released. I get fewer calls for bad updates or blue screens. It used to just be a huge moneymaker, Windows. And so Microsoft is really going after the computer repair shops. A lot of people think, oh, they're forcing the end user. They're not forcing anybody to do anything. But if the end users do it, and many are, a lot are holdouts, but they're realizing they're just causing their own harm. Once the light bulb clicks on and they do what Microsoft wants them to do, all of a sudden all their expenses go down, all their headaches go down, all their anxiety goes away. And usually the end users go, I wish I would have done this sooner, instead of jumping on a bandwagon about, a bunch of people on the internet saying it's bad. And then they actually experience it and go, those people on the internet are insane. This is better. It's way better. Now, I'm not here to promote Microsoft. It's not in my best interest to have people go to Windows 11, quite frankly. I will make a lot more money from Windows 10 users this year than I will make from Windows 11 users. In fact, I'll speculate that of all the service calls I get, 9 out of 10 of them will be Windows 10 computers, and 1 out of 10 will be a Windows 11 computer. So if I was only going to earn money on Windows 11, I'd be out of business. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm seeing a lot of computer repair shops gone now. And I suspect this is exactly why. So you spend your money how you want, and you want to be stubborn, and you want to hold on to old stuff that costs more to maintain it than to replace it. I'm not telling you not to. But for those of us in business, that sort of repair work is about dried up. All that Windows 11 style repair work that we used to do in Windows 10 and prior, it's diminished. It's almost gone. However, do the research yourself. Look up where the computer repair companies used to be, and you'll notice pretty much since the pandemic, it's been a one-way ticket. They're just going away, slowly fading out. So if you want to know why that's happening, I speculate it's Windows 11 because of the modern hardware and the modern OS being so much better and evolved over the past decade that people that just don't know any better have no idea what they're missing. Once they eventually get on board with it, I've never heard anybody regret it, not once. So the idea to avoid Windows 11 is foolish, because unless you can actually give me a reason, like you yourself can demonstrate an issue with me, in most cases, it's a user error and we just train you. But all these people that talk about all this nonsense, as far as I'm concerned, I've never met anybody in my life, in real life, who can't do something in Windows 11 they used to be able to do in Windows 10. But it's quite the other way around. They can do other things in Windows 11 they could never do in Windows 10, and they didn't know they were missing out on it because it never occurred to them that Windows 10 was falling short in those areas because they didn't know. So you use this information however you want to, but I'm just telling you, as far as the computer repair business goes, there's still a lot of software, printer, email, user training that needs to occur, especially in the corporate world. As for the home consumer, those that upgrade to Windows 11, you're pretty much never going to get a call from them. Very, very rarely. So definitely going to be hard to sustain a full-time job servicing modern day consumers with Windows 11. That's just so uncommon now. If you want to be in that school of having less issues and having a modern and secure operating system, then it's in your own best interest to get a computer that's compatible with Windows 11. And if you don't want to, then, you know, adjust your expectations. Know that you've got older parts more likely to fail. Microsoft is going to offer, or they are offering, 12 months of extended security updates for Windows 10, but all you're doing is prolonging the inevitable. So whatever makes you happy, you know, you can switch to Linux, you can go to Apple, you can get rid of a computer altogether if it's just a toy or a novelty for you. With businesses, that's where the money is, because businesses use computers to make money. And everything you've bought and everything you own came from a business, and every one of those businesses couldn't have sold you whatever it is you've got without a computer. Your house, your car, your silverware and your dishes, the groceries that are in your refrigerator, it's all provided by businesses that could not have sold you those goods today in 2025 or really in the 2000s without a computer. Something to think about. So with that, take another quick look here in the chat. James Carter joins us and says hello. Welcome into James Carter. Essential Working Too Hard says hello. Yeah, it cracks me up to see people online complaining about other people's problems, and you say, well, what problems are you having? Oh, I'm not having any. Okay. But what happens if I do? That's why we're here. You know, and when it happens, you let us know. I'm not a voodoo witch doctor. I can't. Let me read your future and solve computer problems you don't have. So people just get worked up over other people's dramatizations and hyperbole, which is oftentimes not even true, but people believe it for some reason. So, you know, oh, stay away, it's dangerous. It isn't, and in fact, it may be the best thing you ever did. And if you do have an issue with it, let us know what the issue is, because more times than not, it's a little bit of a training issue where we have to show you what's changed and then explain, if necessary, why that's an improvement. Sometimes it's just a different perspective and a different attitude that goes into the development and then into the end user experience that has nothing to do with reality and everything to do with what's happening between the ears of the end user, which doesn't always align with reality. It's more emotional than it is practical. I can't help you with the emotional problems, but if you have an actual problem that you yourself, not your friend and not somebody on Reddit, because those people are oftentimes, they have an agenda, and you don't realize that so many people out against it are there either because they feel like they want to be rebellious, or they want to see how gullible people are. And they want to see how many people will so blindly jump on a bandwagon that doesn't really exist. If you don't mind being played that way, you know, don't let me stop you. But in the meantime, oh, I have an email? All right, well, we'll check email here real quick. All right, let's take a look-see. Charlie Purdy joins us and says hello. Good to see you, Charlie. Speaking of Charlie, a very nice Amazon gift card from our friend Charlie. Thank you so much, Charlie. You're the best. All right. And again, a shout out to our members without whom this channel wouldn't exist anymore. We appreciate the members more than you can possibly know. Let's see. Jim Kenny says, why did Amazon charge me $16 to return a power supply for a refund? If you were charged, you weren't charged by Amazon, you were charged by a third-party seller. So when I talk about buying from Amazon, I'm always talking about buying from Amazon the seller, not Amazon the marketplace. These are two different things, and you'll know because if something says it's got Amazon Prime listed under it, it'll have those free returns. You don't have to have a Prime account. It's just telling you that Amazon sells this item and ships this item. So if you look, anytime you make a purchase at Amazon and you think you might need to return it, or you're worried about, getting those 30-day returns, let's take a look at the Amazon page for this mini PC and I'll show you what I look for. It's right there on every single sale page. It's always been there and you guys aren't looking at it. So let's train you and we'll show you. Show you what I look for before I make any purchase, and you should be doing the same thing if you want that peace of mind. So this is the Wowie P6 mini gaming PC. Now we could argue over what makes a gaming PC. To me, anything under $900 is not a gaming PC. Maybe there's an exception here or there, but this is, yeah, I suppose if you wanted to play like classic retro NES games and emulators, technically, yeah, then it is. But because gaming follows so many different genres and perspectives, my attitude is like, well, a gaming PC really should be able to play the best games, because they can always, if it can play the best games, it can also play the old retro games. But it's not the other way around. Just because a machine can play old retro games doesn't mean it can play modern AAA titles. So that term is thrown around a lot, but it's not lying. It is a gaming PC in that sense, if those are the types of games you play, or the like retro emulators. Let's see, we've got a 4-core, 8-thread AMD Ryzen 5 3550H, which will operate at up to 3.7 gigahertz, 16 gigs of RAM, not 8 gigs, but 16. It's DDR4. There's no benefit to DDR5 unless you have a Ryzen 9 or a Intel i9. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I want that DDR5. But on a system here, it's like wanting to put 200 mile per hour rated tires on your Hyundai. It is a complete waste of money, and it is marketing that has brainwashed you into thinking those tires are better. They're only better if you're driving a car that requires them. Otherwise, they're just like any other tire, except they probably wear out sooner and they cost a lot more money. So don't worry about DDR4, DDR5 unless you have a CPU that can handle the benefits of DDR5. These CPUs would see no difference. If you could spend more money to put DDR5 or DDR6 or DDR175, it wouldn't make a difference, because you still have an AMD Ryzen 5 3550. That's the part of it that matters. If you want to have DDR5, you definitely wouldn't want this CPU. All right, so that's just be a smarter shopper. We've got a 512 gig M.2 NVMe SSD and mini desktop computer. Let's see, dual 4K output. Wi-Fi 5 is a couple years old. We're up to Wi-Fi 7 now, but most people don't have it. So Wi-Fi 5 is probably fine for most people looking at this range. And of course, if it's not good enough, you can buy a USB wireless network card and plug it into any of the USB ports to whatever you can afford. If you can afford a USB 7 Wi-Fi and you can afford a USB 7 router, and you want USB 7, Wi-Fi 7, not USB, Wi-Fi 7 speeds, you probably want a more expensive PC than this to keep up. But, you don't have to. There's an $80 coupon here. And so $240 or $239, if you click this box, that's going to take $80. That's going to bring that price down to what, $169? $159. Hold on a minute. I have to do the calculator. 239 minus 80, 159. So you're at like $9 over the budget entry-level PC prices. If you look at any N150, N100 computers, many of them sell for right about the same price. This is way better than that. This is not a Ryzen 3. This is a Ryzen 5. So $159, that's a pretty good deal. And then there's a bigger discount if you buy more than one. So what we're looking for when we're looking to make sure that we're looking for peace of mind that we can return this if we have any problem, whenever I make a purchase from Amazon, and I mean I purchase a lot from Amazon, from household needs to channel needs, and if we scroll down here, it says right under here, free returns. It's literally right where you're looking, wherever the price is, it'll tell you. And if you want more information, you can scroll down. So my guess is if you go back to the page where you bought your power supply, this statement was not there. And had you read it, and it was there the whole time, there's going to be something here that warns you this is not being sold by Amazon. This is being provided by a third party who may charge you a restocking fee or may charge you for return shipping. But I promise you, if you have the page to your power supply, or give us the make and model so we can look at it here on Amazon, we'll show you where that information was that you didn't see. And if you don't see the information, don't buy the product until you identify. That's my rule. If I can't determine if there's free returns or not, I'm not buying the product. It should be very conspicuous, very, very obvious. And oftentimes it's right there in front of your face. Look, I'm as guilty as the next guy. I'll be looking for something and ask for help. Do you guys have this? And then the person's like, yeah, it's right there. You're looking right at it. Oh yeah, thank you. So just be aware when you're making purchases at Amazon. Look to make sure and verify the free returns apply. It's pretty rare I will ever look at or I will ever make a purchase from Amazon that's not covered by Amazon Prime. Because I have Amazon Prime, I don't want to pay for shipping. And so a lot of those returns that cost money, often you're paying for shipping too, to receive it. So right there, that immediately is a big no for me. I'll move on to another product. Oh, excuse me. Anyway, that's a hell of a deal. They got a little bit of information here, 3 USB 3.2. Those are just 5 gig per second. Dual HDMIs. This is good because sometimes a mini PC has one HDMI, one DisplayPort, and then people, they get confused what they're supposed to do with a DisplayPort. It's a $10 adapter cable, but regardless, it creates these panics and anxieties and concerns that are completely simple, and you know, it's a support request I could do with much less of. So this solves that problem. I don't think I've ever had a call where somebody needed DisplayPort, maybe once or twice. But I've had countless calls where people go, I don't know how to use the DisplayPort. What is that? And how does it plug into my monitor? If I have to answer that question one more time, I'm just gonna pull out the rest of my hair. So maddening. So again, kind of thinking ahead here with regards to the ports that people actually use for the audience this is designed for. So for business, DisplayPort is mostly used, but home users, for some reason, I guess a lot of home users don't have jobs or they don't work at offices and they have no idea, or maybe they have an IT department that plugged everything in for them and they've never even looked back there and wondered how it connects to the monitor. Not their job. For whatever reason, just a lot of people very confused by it. A little bit about the CPU, a little bit about the RAM. You'll see it's dual channel RAM that you cannot have on a budget Celeron style, N style Intel CPU. It's limited in that way. This CPU is not limited like that. It does 4K 60 Hertz and will support 3 screens simultaneously. And yeah, you can use it for all of these things, from whether it's home theater, homeschooling, or remote learning, office work, or remote office work, even photo editing. It's got the power to do all of that. And even video editing too, if you don't mind waiting a little while for the videos to render, depending on how big the video is, what resolution the video is at, and just how much editing you're doing. Lots of video layering and overlays and voiceovers and edits. This computer will still handle it, as would any computer. But the more complex and larger the video file is, the more inadequate this may be for that task. But on simple edits, you know, like these days the trend is on short videos like TikTok and Facebook Reels. A computer like this is all you need. It'll get it done fast. So with that, I don't know if there's any reviews on this yet. I think it's brand new. Let's see. Does anybody have anything to say? A little bit more detail about the front and the back of it here. Ethernet port back there, 1 gig Ethernet port. And we have some reviews. Good, but for old school games. So referring to gaming, yes, that's why I say retro gaming, that's going to be fine on here. The basic mini PC as you covered for the move to Windows 11. Yeah, because Windows 11 is already on it. Small, quiet, capable. Well, this is an Amazon Vine customer review. So, in fact, this is also an Amazon Vine. I don't know how much I trust Amazon Vine reviews. They're all Amazon Vine reviews. Okay. So I don't see anything from a verified purchaser. Well, all right. Well, I guess it's all up to us then to get a truly, you know, to know with confidence there's no bias in the review. Let me jump back over to camera 1 and then back over to the chat room. Shamim Kajviris joins us from Sweden. So Jim Kenny says there's a Corsair 650/80 Plus bronze. Let's take a look at that Amazon page to see what the return policy is on that. So I want to just put that into, let's look at capture plus bronze non-modular. So this says free returns. So because this has free returns, if you are charged an return, then it sounds like somebody at Amazon customer service made a mistake, or you purchased it from another seller. You see down this list, if you purchased it from any of these other businesses, they may have a different return policy. So if you also, depending on inventory, so if Amazon was sold out of this, then the next one that appears here is the next cheapest one on the list. So if we're looking at what's new, the next cheapest one on the list is coming from Newegg Business and this New Trend Automotive. So if we look at New Trend Automotive, see it says ships and sold by, that's not Amazon. Therefore, Amazon's return policies may not apply to them. So if you look at your, here, to get information about return, return, customer servicing issues. So what I would do in order to get to the bottom of this is I would go to your account up here, your account, and look under your orders and take a look at your invoice and see who you ordered this from. Because, well, this is on the page today from the Corsair store, you may not have gotten it from the Corsair store. And if we look at the policies for the Corsair store, yeah, it's very clearly says free returns. So then what I would do if I were you, if this is in fact purchased from the Corsair store, from this link, then I would reach out to Amazon customer service, say it clearly states there's I can return this item for free. Please explain to me why you're charging me $16. Don't tell them, don't accuse them that they made a mistake. Play innocent. Why was I charged $16? Doesn't this say it's free, or am I misunderstanding something? Please advise. And usually, when you don't come across as hostile, the response you'll get will often be very kind, and people will want to help you. They might say, oh, you know, we've made a mistake. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We apologize for the inconvenience. Here is your refund. No worries. But if you come at them, if you come in hot and come in angry, you might be wrong. And then instead of wanting to help you, they're going to set you straight. Say, well, you didn't read the fine print, mister. And because you're being a jerk, we're not going to offer anything voluntary to help. So just play it off innocent. Say, did I misunderstand? I don't understand. Why was I charged for this when it clearly says, do you not see free returns, or is it just me? And you can email their customer service, or you can live chat with Amazon's customer service. They're not likely going to lose a customer over $16 unless the customer isn't one they want. In other words, if you're difficult, they don't probably want your business. But if you're a nice person, it's a pleasure to work with you. I'm sure they want to keep you around. So just keep that in mind. Let us know how that works out for you. And he says he's got a couple of minis, including the Huawei P5. It's just like this one, using a Ryzen 3500U. He says his latest one is the GMK Tech K3 or K8 Plus. I think it says K8. Yeah, so it's going to be glasses time here in a minute. Okay, so let me come back over here and let's do our unboxing. I feel like this has some tape on it. Oh no, it doesn't. Okay, we ready? Let me try and go over here to camera 2 and see if we can get a close-up of this on. There we go. Huawei P6, is that what I said it was called? Yeah. Sorry, I'm going back to my Amazon page. The Huawei P6. Visa mounting bracket. I never use these, but this allows you to mount the mini PC behind your monitor or against a desk or wall if you want to get it off the desk. We've got a SATA cable, so apparently this will hold a 2.5-inch drive inside. I don't recommend you do that because it will trap heat in there and you'll have more heat-related problems than if you don't use this. I would recommend you just get a USB adapter. The USB is just as fast as this cable, so it doesn't make any sense these days to enclose more heat into a small box that's going to create more heat for the RAM and more heat for your M.2 drive, and it may overall decrease system performance. It's your choice, but there's a cost to using these that, well, it's your decision, and they give you this cable. If it were me, I would never give customers this cable. But, you know, you may not agree with me. We have an HDMI cable, and we have a power brick. Now, I'm not a fan of these power bricks because oftentimes the cables are just too darn short. Also, sometimes these block other access to other nearby outlets. And the biggest problem I have is the length of cable. I much prefer more of a laptop style adapter where a power plug, instead of prongs being built in, a plug plugs in, and then I can get a longer plug. So the problem I'm going to have is this is probably only 4 feet. So that means I can't go any further than 4 feet from the wall. But when you're buying a budget PC, especially at this price, the fact that you don't have to wind it up is something to be grateful for. All right, let's clear this out of the way. Oh, and let's go ahead and put this stuff back. So we don't need any of this for today's video. And that is quite a beefy user manual in there. There's a lot in there, mostly in different languages. I'm not sure how much of that applies to the English language, but my guess would be about 1/8 of it. There it is. All right, so move some stuff out of the way here. Actually, I think I'm putting that in my way. I'll move it down here. Let me come back over to camera 1 and let's take a closer look. Okay, front of the unit, USB Type-C there, right up front. It's going to be USB 3.2. That's not USB 4. If you want that, you want to definitely look for a more expensive computer. We've got USB 2.0, which is ideal for your keyboard or mouse because you're not going to type any faster. And then save this port for something where higher speed is beneficial, like a flash drive or a printer. I don't know. Even a printer probably isn't going to print much faster with that. There's your 2 HDMIs and a barrel style power connector and your 1 gigabit per second Ethernet port. Venting on both sides. And on the bottom, we see sort of this B-Link style pull tab. That's the only menu. I don't know if there's any relationship there, but maybe it's a trend, but I like that. And I like that there are holes in the rubber feet so you can access the screws. Some models you have to peel the rubber feet off and then they never stick back quite as good. And then if you have to do that more than once, eventually the rubber feet don't stick anymore. And it's nearly impossible to find replacements that will match the original. You can get creative, but you'll never put it back as nice as it was new. So the idea that they've got holes in the rubber feet to access a standard Phillips screw is ideal. We appreciate that design. And then once you get the screws removed, instead of getting a spudger and potentially scoring up the edges trying to separate it, you just grab this tab and pull it, and the back will come off. And then if you want to put a 2.5-inch drive in against your Uncle Carey's advice, that's how you do that. So let's plug it in, turn it on, and see what it's like. Now I am going to have a little bit of an issue reaching the wall from this desk, and this is my biggest concern with these units. When you buy the budget computers, you get budget power supplies. And yes, you can buy an extension cord and then run it from here to as far as you need it. But now suddenly this isn't as cheap anymore. If you have to keep buying and adding things to it, sometimes it's cheaper to just go another level up that already has everything you need than to try and piecemeal it. No differently than you go to a fast food restaurant and you want to order individual things off the menu. They may already have a combo meal with those items all together at a discounted price. Do you want to pay the cheaper price for the exact same thing? Or do you want to spend more money for the feeling of control? Either way, you're getting the same thing. It's just a question of how much you're paying. If you're okay with a 4-foot cord, or you already have stuff laying around to extend it if need be, so be it. But just know that going into it, that's almost universally true of almost all PCs under $300. Just so you know, mini PCs. I think we'll be okay here. I've got the power adapter not too far from me. It is absolutely, I can't really pull it any closer to the edge of the table. That is as tight as it goes. And I cannot walk that way because it's so tight. There's no slack in the cable for me to step over. So ideally, this would not be Good for this type of desk setup, but just so you know, you can plan for that. Speaking of which, I now have to step over it to get the keyboard and mouse, but maybe I can just reach. There we go. Keyboard and mouse. I'll plug that into the USB 2 port. We do not want to plug Ethernet into this until after we have started it all up and gotten it through the out-of-box experience. Then when we get to the desktop, then we plug into the internet. Don't plug in flash drives, don't plug in anything whenever you set up a computer for the first time. Laptops, desktops, or mini PCs. Unless you just like making yourself miserable, in which case knock yourself out. The strongest and best advice I can give you is hook up your keyboard, your mouse, your monitor, and your power. That's all. No speakers, no printers, nothing else yet. So let's see, what am I missing? I need the monitor, the HDMI cable. Okay. And what we're doing this for is if there's anything wrong with the unit, we've never turned it on before. Why are you assuming it's okay? It's okay to feel positive and say, oh, I'm sure it's fine. But verify. Once you're verified, then it's safe to move forward. Because if you're wrong, good luck trying to figure out if it's your printer, your flash, all those things you plug into it, your speakers, any of that can potentially cause an issue with compatibility, or with plugs not being plugged all the way in, or plugs being plugged in the wrong places. Plus, when you plug in the internet, when you're setting up, it wants to download a bunch of updates. Some updates may cause a problem, and then you won't know if it was the update that causes the problem, or if the unit itself was bad out of the box. So if you like not knowing, and you enjoy making life 1,000 times harder than it needs to be, then don't listen to me. Then I am the worst advice you could ever get. But if you want to do things once, and you want to do them right, it's important that we separate and compartmentalize each part of a brand new and unfamiliar computer so that we can identify if there's a problem. Within a matter of seconds, we know exactly where the problem is. And that'll get you to your solution a lot faster than throwing darts at a board guessing. But you do you. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. Power's on. I feel the fans coming on. And let me go over here to our HDMI input. And let's see if we get anything on the screen here. Remember, this is a first-time power on. We've not modified this in any way, shape, or form. If it arrives damaged, if there's any issue with it, you're going to see it live on camera. As it boots up, it should take us into our out-of-box experience or first-time setup. And this is why it is so critical that you leave everything unplugged at this time. Because if we can't get through this without an error, we know there's something wrong with the PC, and to send it back, well, we have our 30-day returns, whether you want a refund or an exchange. But if you plug a bunch of stuff into it and you have an error, good luck figuring it out, what's causing that. So as we come up here, everything's working like it should. And again, it's all about verification, verification, verification. We verify before we move forward. I don't want to take a step off a cliff that doesn't have a bridge. Okay, so I'm going to check and make sure the bridge is there. I'm going to feel it and make sure it's solid. Then I'll take one step on it and feel it and everything. If I see other people walking on it, no problem. But you're not going to blindfold me and then have me walk across the edge of a cliff. I'm just not taking your word for it. Sorry. I need to have verification before moving forward. Now, what it's doing now is still pretty normal. We go through the normal out-of-box experience. And it comes up with our first option here, which is to select our language. So this is also our region. So there's different levels of English, different types, British English, United States English, etc. I'm in the US, I speak US English. It looks like it's defaulted into 4K mode because everything's super tiny, which doesn't make it any easier on my eyes, but we will get to that, not yet. Again, we want to avoid any changes at this point to make sure the machine, to verify that there's nothing wrong with the machine. Otherwise, you'll never quite know. So the United States is our region. Click yes. And the keyboard layout will be US because other English keyboards like the British keyboard, they're laid out differently. They have some keys in different places. So you can add a secondary keyboard for a different language, but we don't. I'm American. We pretty much all speak one language. I'm going to click I don't have internet down here. Do not sign up to the internet yet. It's nice that the option to click that is built in, and I'll accept their license agreement. And then we'll put a username in. I'll call it user. Enter with a blank password. That way I don't have to enter a password every time the computer boots. I don't want to deal with it. You might want to, but you know, that's your misery, not mine. And then I'm going to uncheck everything here except for location settings. That way my date and time will always be kept up to date, including daylight saving time. And if I'm looking for the hours of a business near me, it knows what near me means when I do those searches. And it also helps because if your date and time go out of whack for whatever reason, you may not be able to browse the web. You'll get errors. And oftentimes the errors don't tell you it's because of your date and time. You get certificate errors that have expired, which probably means gibberish to an average user. So they go, what do I do? Fix your date and time. Oh, was that all I had to do? Well, if you'd have left the damn location settings on, you wouldn't even have had to done that. So some people want to create their own misery. I'm trying to keep people happy and avoid those support calls, because when people call me for support, it costs them money. You'd think I'd want that. That's why I'm a terrible businessman, always trying to save people money. All right, let me right click on the desktop and I'm going to go to Properties. And wow, holy cow, let me close this. Hold on. Right click. Display settings is what I want. I'm sure I could have got in from that other way, but I just want to do it this way. We'll set that to 1920 by 1080. Now I can read it a lot better. Okay, so with that set up, and just to be very clear with you, if I wasn't clear before, now we can start plugging things in. So the first and only thing I want to plug in next, not that you have to do it in this order, this is my personal preference. I'm sharing with you secrets of the industry when you're working on hundreds of computers. Doing it the way you do it at home probably won't scale up. You'll take too long. You'll have too many problems that take too long to resolve. And likely, if you don't get on board with the other employees following the procedures, you likely may not maintain a job at that employer. If you work the way the employer wants you to work at home, it makes more sense than if you want to work at home the same way over at work. You might lose your job. Just saying, there's a method behind my madness. If it's benefiting a business, it benefits a home user, but it does not work the other way around. It's yours to do however you want. I'm strongly advising you to think through your decisions and accept responsibility. All right, whatever you choose, it's your responsibility, not mine. All right, let me grab an Ethernet cable and we're going to plug this in and start checking for updates. And while it's checking for updates, we'll take a look at what we've got here as far as versions of operating system, etc. So I plugged the cable in and we're going to come over here to HDMI 3 and we're going to go back over to our full screen here so I can see it the way you guys at home see it. And right down there, the little monitor appeared that tells us it got an IP address from our router. And we're going to just hit settings and Windows Update. Now, a couple of things I like to change. These are my personal preferences that I am voluntarily sharing with you. I turn on to always get the latest updates. This is so customers don't call me with viruses and computer problems because they thought they'd be smart by avoiding the Windows updates. It's their money. I'll go into advanced options. I also say receive updates for other Microsoft products for the exact same reason. And I want to be kept up to date for the exact same reason. This will eliminate 10% of support calls. This alone. Just telling you. I turn this on by default. I don't want my customers to have support calls. I know that's not good for business, but that's the way I run my business. It's amazing I still have a business. I want to right click on the start menu. I'm going to go to System. We're going to take a look at some of the specifications. So here is our AMD Ryzen 5 3550H. It's got Vega mobile graphics built into the CPU. It has 16 gigs of RAM, which it's my understanding are 2 sticks of 8, but we'd have to open it up or run CPU-C to verify that. We have the latest version of Windows 11 Pro. That's version 24H2. That means even though the machine has technology that's a couple of years old, their operating system is the latest and greatest, and you're just saving money, basically. The difference between generations of processors is about 10% at most. So being a couple generations behind may make you 20% slower, but it also makes you about 50% cheaper. With regards to expense, you're going to spend 50% less, is what I'm trying to say. So, you know, if you're somebody who's smart with your money, you can see where the value is. If you're somebody who just has a lot of money and you don't care, you might overbuy for your actual needs just because you can. Since most people don't fall into that category, I do not coddle to them. My concept is to make videos that apply to the every person, and most of us, and especially right now, very concerned with money. The computer's not that important, but important enough that we want to make sure we're safe and secure and we're able to do what we need to do while avoiding all the anxiety and issues that come with an older machine or an older operating system. This will put you in an emotional state of, a lot of people don't realize the weight they're carrying around with them. Voluntarily, they just will not, they refuse to put the weight down. But once they eventually get tired, and everybody gets tired, you can't do that forever, and you finally succumb and give up and say, fine, I'll get the new computer, all of a sudden this weight that you didn't realize was there that you've been carrying around is gone. You may stand up straighter, you may have an overall better attitude, and all of a sudden if you think about what changed in your life that made things better, it's because you got rid of that anxiety-ridden device you've been carrying around in your mind, worrying about it. Now all of a sudden that's wiped out, it's gone. There's not a pill or a doctor that could solve this issue. It's something you have to do for yourself. And you may not even realize you're doing it until it's been taken off of your shoulders. This weight, you may never have realized it was there until it's gone. And all of a sudden you feel lighter. You're like, wow, I had no idea that was causing me so much stress. You wouldn't, because you didn't know any better. Ask me how I know. If we look in MS Info 32, that will show us system information, which is different than the system properties here. System properties is different from system information. So system information will verify that we're in UEFI mode. We can verify whether or not secure boot is turned on or off. We can easily turn that on if we want to. If you do turn that on, you might find it difficult to boot to other operating systems and flash drives. Just remember, you might have to turn that off if you're somebody who likes to tinker. If you're most users, you don't tinker, you use the computer for what the computer is designed to do. Like if you bought a sewing machine, you're probably using it for sewing. But if the reason you bought the sewing machine was to see how fast you can get it to thread through leather, even though you're not making anything, it's just a benchmark you run, and that's all you use the machine for, and you're constantly modifying the machine to make it go faster, even though you're not actually making anything, you don't represent the audience that I'm trying to appeal to, which are the people that are the average owners that suffer the same frustrations. And we're trying to put people on a path of confidence and let them know that the misinformation online is very much more than likely going to cause them problems, and to accept that risk if they want to make modifications. If you leave things alone, you can expect more of the same. If you make changes, you could make it better, but you could make it worse. As long as you're okay with either decision, that responsibility is on you. My advice is leave it alone unless you have to change it. So when it comes to secure boot, we'll show you how to turn that on. We can take a quick look in Device Manager and just make sure all of our devices are loaded and all of our drivers are loaded. And you can see there's no exclamation points, there's no errors, everything looks happy in here. So right from the factory, we're pretty good to go. We are always going to be missing updates on a computer. I could ship a computer to you today, and by the time you get it, there's probably some updates, I swear. That's just part of the routine of keeping your computer secure on the ever-changing and ever-evolving worldwide internet. It is a battlefield. And those updates come out frequently at no expense to protect you. To avoid them is just silly disillusion. Disillusion? It's denial and delusion to think that all of the threats that exist don't apply to you. I mean, you can think that all you want. You could also think that it's dark outside when it's sunny, or that it's dry outside when it's raining. You can think whatever you want, but for the rest of us living in reality, what you think doesn't change what's actually happening. So again, make whatever decision you want and accept responsibility for the decisions you make. That's all I'm saying. It's nobody else's fault that you did that. Now, while that's updating, let me jump over here to camera 1. And let's go back to the chat and see if there's any questions about the unit. I thought I was hearing fans, but they're actually coming from the streaming machine, just so you know. There is some, you can tell there's a fan in there that's running. It's not silent. But these fans are way louder, so that's what I'm hearing right now. All right, let's get back over to the chat room. Paul 5828 joins us and says hello. Andy says, I'm going to get a Nano KVM Pro to remote my WSPR station. Yeah, I saw an update from Cyped on Twitter showing the manufacturing of the metal enclosure that were being, it's like a big cylinder, and then they cut it into the right size, and then it goes into the anodization tank to be painted or anodized. So hopefully they'll be shipping them soon. My internal ATX Nano KVM Pro says it has shipped, but I don't know how long it'll take for me to get it. But that's already been, it's built, it's out of the factory, but that's an internal card. So I'm not super excited about it, not as much as I am about the Nano KVM Pro. So now they're into the manufacturing efforts are into the external enclosure, and hopefully those will, I'll see an update on Twitter, I hope, that those are shipped. And then usually within 2 days I'll get an email that says your item is shipped and here's your tracking info. The tracking info is pretty useless until it gets into the United States. So the tracking info in China just verifies it got out, but it doesn't really give you much information. And that's with every Chinese shipment I've ever seen, you know, except maybe DHL. David Graham says, admitted, Carey, you're getting old and need glasses full time. Well, when it comes to reading text on a screen, it really depends what the size of the text is and what the sign of the screen is and the distance from me to the screen. But my eyes are definitely worse now than they were this time last year. And I've never needed glasses ever, so I'm very resistant to them. But I always have a pair of glasses with me because there's nothing worse than needing to look at, you know, say you're grocery shopping, and I want to make sure I'm not buying expired food. I'm seeing a lot of that in grocery stores. Not only are the prices high, but I get it home and find out that things expired 3 months ago. And I'm trying to see the little tiny, and I can't see it. So yeah, in those cases, I need glasses. But aside from reading, most reading I can do fine, and everything else I do fine. But ask me again next year. It's only going to get worse. I already know that. And when it does, I will react appropriately. But yeah, it's definitely a consequence of not dying. you know. What else to say? If I was dead, this wouldn't be a problem. But if I'm going to continue to age, there's going to be more problems. Getting old is not for the weak. Hey, there's Frankie B. Thank you again, Frankie, for your contribution the other day. It was very kind of you. Great friend of the channel here, Frankie B. There's Mats Olaf, another great friend of the channel here. They're both saying hello. Paul Howe joins us and says hello. Welcome into Paul and Poorly Boy. And Alan, welcome in, guys. Good to see everybody. I hope you're having a great Friday. Michael Warner saying happy Friday to everybody. Back at you, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about this particular mini PC? Anything you want me to look up while we've got it? Like, for example, who makes the network card? Is it Intel? Is it Realtek? It just occurred to me I didn't look at that. We're waiting on updates right now, so let's go back over while we're waiting. And let's go to the device manager. And let's see, under network adapters, we have Realtek, who makes the wireless 802.11ac, and Realtek also makes the gigabit LAN adapter. So the wireless LAN and the wired LAN are both made by Realtek. That's fantastic. That means if you ever want to check for newer drivers, just go to Realtek. They provide drivers. Or you can always just go to Wowie and get their official company drivers. You shouldn't need to do that, but if you ever do, it's not like MediaTek where you can't get the drivers other than from the manufacturer of the computer. I hope MediaTek, I hope, changes that policy in the future. But for now, it's the only downside to their product, as far as I'm concerned, that Realtek and Intel do not suffer from. Or I suppose their customers don't suffer from. MediaTek customers, different story. But it has nothing to do with the quality of the hardware or the quality of the driver. It's the availability of the driver that concerns me, should you need it, and you shouldn't. But there you go. If I take my USB flash drive, again, while we're waiting, where is my USB flash drive? I've got some utilities to copy over, and we can test things like the speed of the NVMe drive. I want you to understand that the speed of the NVMe drive is also part and parcel to the amount of lanes your CPU has. So you could put the fastest drive in the world inside of this computer and it will only run as fast as the CPU can handle it. So don't waste your money mixing and matching high-end and mid-grade components, because you're just wasting money. If you wait until you have the foundation to handle higher-end components, those higher-end components will be cheaper later. If you buy it today thinking I'm future-proofing, what you're doing is you're spending more for something you don't need, and when you actually need it, if that day ever comes, the price will be cheaper at that time. So there's really no upside to getting something at a higher price that can operate faster than the current computer can operate. This idea that, well, I'll move it into my next computer is only costing you more money. It's costing you money. It's a very bad investment to, think that you're future-proofing. You're spending more is what you're doing. You're not future-proofing anything. So if we go here and look at, where do I want to go? We'll go to File Explorer. And again, while updates are installing, we can multitask here. Let's grab a few things. I always like to put VLC on systems. Rather than using Microsoft's media stuff, I always take that stuff off. I think it's useless. Let's see, Uncle Carey's Windows 10 Optimizer. We'll throw that on there. And the Windows 11 net fixes, I'll throw those on there just so I can access network shares without a username and password. Again, it's my preference and my values. It may not align with yours. Let's see, Crystal Disk Mark Portable. Let's take that. And we can even grab Crystal Disk Info. And if we want to run Cinebench on it, I think that's silly for a mini PC like this. But we can. There's no rules that say you can't. It's just silly, in my opinion. It's silliness. It's like taking your Hyundai to the drag race track. Okay, have at it. You're not going to impress anybody, is all I'm saying. Okay, so we're going to let these update, but while they're updating, I can at least take a look at Crystal Disk Info. I'm not going to run the benchmark for the drive performance because the drive is being used doing updates right now, so we won't have its sole attention, and those benchmarks will not be legit. So we can at least take a look at the specifications of the manufacturer and the drive itself. This is something called Hi-Rel. I've never heard of them. It's a 512 gig SSD, and it shows that it's a PCIe 3, so a generation 3 drive times 4 plugged into a generation 3 socket times 4. So the maximum speed generation 3 times 4 can possibly deliver at the most amount of money that you could spend is 3,600 megabytes per second. I don't expect this to run that fast because usually the manufacturers will not put in a high performance drive, which adds more heat, it's more difficult to cool, and it adds more cost to the unit. If the cost is more, the customers won't buy it. So what they're doing is they're saying, let's balance this. They're not ordering a Big Mac and then asking for a Diet Coke because I'm on a diet. That's not how diets work. If you're going to, if you're buying it for flavor, that's one thing. But if you're saying, I'm not going to have a Coke, I'm going to have a Diet Coke, but you're still getting the Big Mac and the French fries. Seriously, what are you thinking? You're obviously not committed. You like how it sounds, but you don't actually follow through with your actions. So in much the same way, when manufacturers like this are trying to build a machine, well, let me ask you, what would you do? Let's you and I pretend we're in a meeting. We're sitting around the table, and we're a company that makes mini PCs. And I say, okay, we want to make the best mini PC amongst our catalog. We'll have a high end, we'll have a low end, and we'll have a bunch of middles. We're going to talk about one at a time. Today I want to talk to you about the budget entry level. What is the most we can give our customers for the least amount of money? Ideas? We go around the table. Someone says, well, give them 2.5 gig networking because it adds value. Okay, but 2.5 gig networking costs more to put on. That adds cost. So is the added cost going to benefit the majority of our purchasers? In other words, will the majority of people buying this class of machine have 2.5 gig networking? No. No, they won't. Okay. And we're going to go through every component. How much storage does the average person need? Okay. So how much storage is too little? How much storage is too slow? Or what kind of storage is too slow? How does that affect the price? You see, there's no right or wrong answers here. It's really just doing the math. Say, okay, well, who are our customers intended for this device? Well, they're probably this age range. They make X amount of dollars annually. Trust me, they know all kinds of things about their demographics. And do those people care if a drive runs at 2,500 megabytes per second or 3,600? No. Are these the people that watch YouTube videos and get advice from you? No, they're not. Are these the people that like to play around with the computer outside of maybe gaming? Are they really into computers? No, they're no more into computers than they might be into baseball. Maybe they're all in, maybe not. But generally speaking, those type of customers will be spending more because they're enthusiasts and they're more demanding. You can be as demanding as you want, as long as you're willing to pay for it. They can accommodate whatever your needs are. So we're trying to accommodate a very high value mini PC. So we're looking for ideas around the table. How do we give the customer the most of what the average customer will actually benefit from? Not a few, but the majority who buy this. What are they going to notice? What are they looking for? Okay, very easy. First answer, price. How much is it? Sometimes it stops and ends right there. Customer doesn't even look any further. Some customers may do a little bit more research and say, well, what's the warranty on it? It's a good question. Some customers may ask, how upgradable is it? When you're buying a machine at this level, it's not going to be very upgradable. Again, if you want to spend money to be that particular, you're following more into the enthusiast realm. Most customers that buy a computer from Dell or HP that are already built are buying it for price. They never open it. Never, not even to dust it out. They don't even know they're supposed to. This is the crowd we're building this for. Those are the people we're competing with, HP and Dell, at this kind of level. How can we beat them on price? How can we give customers more value? And how can we get those customers coming over to us instead? Let's take away our competitors' customers for this level of product. How do we get there? Do we put USB 4 on it? They don't have anything USB 4. They don't even know what it means. Not yet. That's going to add cost to this. So no. On our high-end one, yes. On our low-end one, we're not putting Thunderbolt on it. It's going to add to the cost. We add to the cost. The customer, first thing, they see the price. They don't look at the details. Right there, just out of my price range. It doesn't matter what it's got. I can't afford it. So how can we appeal to the most amount of people at the lowest possible price with still giving them a warranty and a machine that's not just, slower than the machine they have already? It is not an easy thing to figure out, and there's not a lot of agreement on it. The fact that this has an $80 coupon on it makes it an unbelievable value, because I do this for a living, and I've been making these videos. Anybody who's been watching my videos or videos that cover mini PC reviews, I think you'll all agree there isn't a better value right now at this price point with that $80 coupon. But if you're aware of one where you're getting the same or better with RAM, storage, and price equal to or better than this, please tell us who it is, because we definitely want to share that. The reason I'm sharing this today is specifically because I believe it is the leader. If you want the best bang for the buck at the lowest possible price, right now, today, this is your guy. Well, that sale is happening. Now, when this goes back to regular price, I'm not so enthusiastic about it, because at that point, it's not that much more to get up into the higher mid-tier where you can get a higher end, more modern processor and Wi-Fi. But if that doesn't matter to you, if I ask you what Wi-Fi do you have at home and I don't know, congratulations. You're the average computer owner. You would be very happy with this. Hey, Frank Jimmy joins us and says hello. Paul Howe said he's still using his Minis Forum 795S7 Mini ITX with the RTX 4060 GPU. It's had no problems. That's a really nice system. Eugene Ildago says, how does this computer compare with the Trigkey S5 5500U? What's the price on the Trigkey S5 5500U? Let's just start there. Luke Greeny has said, this is the way product support should work. I called MSI looking for an 8-pin GPU cable with the single connector. They said, yeah, they have it. I asked how much, and they said, well, you paid the $5 shipping and we'll send it to you for free. You just got to pay for the shipping. My understanding is Lou Greeny reached out to Lian Li tech support and received no response. I went onto Twitter because Lian Li's constantly advertising on Twitter. And on many of their advertisements, they posted like 3 or 4 promotions within 2 days. And I said, yeah, it looks good, but how come your tech support doesn't answer emails? Yeah, it looks good, but how come I get no response to my RMA request? And they responded on Twitter almost immediately. They said, what email did you send to? They want to help you, Luke. They're begging you to tell them where you're not getting answers from. I don't know why they're ignoring you on one side of the company and they're all over it on the other side. But if you go to x.com or Twitter and look up Lee and Lee and look at their recent postings and look for the comments, you or leave your own comment and say, I've tried reaching out to you guys and you won't respond. They will respond to you within a day and they're going to ask you, where are you reaching out? They seem to be under the impression that either you're reaching out to the wrong place or there's an issue happening where employees aren't doing their jobs and they want to know. So I wanted to share that information if you choose to pursue that. I expected what you said, which is just being ignored. They did not ignore me. They were right on top of it. And they did seem very concerned, just so you know. It may be too little too late at this point, but I was just going to bat for you, my friend. Ahmed said, I've learned a lot from you when I've started refurbishing computers. That's awesome. Let's see how we're doing over here. Full screen. Wrong full screen, Carey. Hold on. I'm hitting the wrong buttons. Right click, screen. We're installing. Why did the font get smaller? Oh, I think a video driver might have gone on. Right click, display settings. Did it go back to 4K? No, it still says it's 1080. Huh. Maybe I'm just not having a good day. Oh, this looks better. I don't know what that was all about. So we're downloading still this update, installing this update, and yeah, I like to get rid of this thing down here, search permissions. And over here, the last item under more settings, turn that off. That gets rid of that little cartoon down here. I don't like that Microsoft hides systems, icons in the system tray, especially like security and Bluetooth. I think that's important to know the status, even my USB. So I right click and I go to taskbar settings. It really bothers me that Microsoft is hiding this, but they're turning this on, which I don't want. And under system tray icons, Microsoft OneDrive, that can stay hidden, but I want to see the status of my Bluetooth at all times. I want to see the ability of, safely ejecting USB devices there on the system tray. And I want to see the status of my Windows security at all times. I don't like that hidden. I think that's very bad decisions from Microsoft setting those default settings. But once I set them once, they'll stay that way forever. It's just that I work on so many computers, I have to keep repeating all of these preferences on every machine I work on, and it just gets old at scale. All right, back over to camera one as we continue to wait for this to update. I've got something sticky on my desk. Might be from my Gatorade. All right. Luke says, oh, Lee and Lee did respond to his RMA, and they've been going back and forth for 2 weeks. They won't warranty my all-in-one because I won't reinstall the bad one to provide a video of the issue. It's an issue that they know about, and it was even being addressed on their own site. Okay. That's when you're dealing with bureaucrats. right? People that can't think or exercise judgment, and they follow orders like a robot, and they cannot think on their own, or they're not allowed to think on their own. At that point, I would ask to speak with a manager or a supervisor and explaining, just tell them exactly what you told me. I'm not going to reinstall this again when you guys know it's an issue. You know, you shouldn't be surprised. Why else would I be opening an RMA if it worked fine? Just to get another one that I'm going to send you back one? I'm still going to have one. Question is the one I have working? It's not, for a common reason you're aware of. Maybe send them a copy of their own website that you're saying if Leon Lee has acknowledged this on their website, send them a link and say, there's your proof. I would like a replacement, please. Leave it at that. Even tell them you run a small business, you cannot shut the computer down again. It's already cost you enough money. I expect my warranty to be honored for an issue you guys are well aware of that you're not voluntarily recalling, by the way. So you can do a little gentle nudge. All right, let's see how we're doing over here. Right click, source, full screen. It seems like we're not getting anywhere, and I'm not sure why. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just restart this computer. Now, normally I don't recommend restarting during an update unless it says it's okay to do so. And normally I'm not in a big hurry for the updates. If whatever it's doing that it's stuck, it'll get over it on its own. However, I'm doing a live show here, and when updates are taking longer than they should, there could be some background processes running that the updates are waiting for these other background processes to stop. So by shutting the computer down, I'm shutting down all the background processes, and then the updates that were waiting for that can now install. That's why it says updates are underway now, whereas before it seemed a bit locked up. That's one way to free it up. Another way to free it up is to leave it alone and let it finish whatever the background thing was it was doing, but that could take a half an hour or longer. So it's up to you. Again, because I'm on a live broadcast, I want to keep this moving along because we can't do the next thing until this is done. So we want to test the speed of the NVMe drive, and we'll take the bottom off of it and we'll take a look at the inside. Okay? What I love about this line of work is there's no right or wrong way. There's my way, there's your way. I do this for a living. If I don't do it my way and I go out of business, what do you care? But if I do it my way and I go out of business, it's solely either way, it's my fault. And when it comes to whether or not my business survives or my business dies, I don't take those decisions lightly, and how I decide my policies and processes to protect me from scamming customers, to ensure that good customers are taken care of and will come back and refer me. And it doesn't matter if you're not a customer, how you feel about any of my processes or policies. You do it your way, and I'm not telling you your way is wrong, and I just appreciate the same respect in return. When you're held accountable for your work, you do it the way that you're comfortable with. I'm held accountable for my work, and I'm voluntarily opening the door to show you these insider secrets. Some people, they'll pay money for insider secrets that they'll cherish, but if they get them for free, they will diminish. They'll basically say they don't have any value because I gave it away for free. So people are welcome to do that as well. And what we're trying to do here is to offer basically an insider look into the business to help guide you guys on what to expect if you want to start your own business, or if you're having difficulty with a business maybe take a minute to understand why there's some difficulty there. Just as there are scamming customers, there are also scamming businesses. So, you know, it's not always in the right one way or the other. A customer's not always right. A business isn't always right. And so my policies and my procedures come from balancing that and showing you, here's how I deal with it. That's not how everyone deals with it. It's how I deal with it. And if you go, hey, that makes sense, great. And if you say, I don't agree with it, that's great too. You don't have to. It's not an option in my world. Nothing's riding on your approval. But when you're a customer, everything's riding on the approval. We need to make sure that those paying customers that keep us in business, we want those customers. It's harder to get a new customer than it is to keep one you've already got. Ask me how I know. So if you don't mind doing a bunch of marketing and just burning through people, that's a business choice you can make. You're going to tire yourself out and you're going to have a lot of pissed off people, but you might be richer than me at the end of the day. But sooner or later, you're going to spend that money and you're not going to have a business anymore. I don't know. It's a choice. It's not one I want to make. Sean Gallagher says he's got these computers and they have a single 16 gig DDR4. So one way we can tell without opening up the machine is we can run CPU-Z, because I have no idea. The benefit of putting a single 16 gig DDR4 in the machine is your next upgrade would be to 32. So if they put 2 8s in here, you'd have to buy 2 16s. But if they put 1 16 in here, you only have to buy one other 16, cutting the price of the upgrade in half. So whether that's good or bad, and you're not saying it's good or bad, you're just saying that's what I found as they installed one. It's just there for informational purposes. Let's see if our experience matches yours here in just a moment. I appreciate the feedback. Let me go back over to the desktop. And yeah, it's already installed those updates, or at least one of the updates. And what I want to do is, whoops, didn't mean to click on that. Let's go back and see what our update status is. Here's update. Okay, so it's whatever it was doing, that was what was holding up these 2 updates. There was a hidden update that was somehow off the list. That explains why it seemed to be like it wasn't progressing. It was progressing with something else. Thank you for letting us know, Microsoft. But anyway, it's going to be moving along here in a minute. Well, we're waiting on that. One of the utilities I did not copy off my flash drive is CPU-Z. If you're wondering where I get CPU-Z, it's a free utility that you do not install. Start without my data. Bring this up for the first time. And we just type in CPU-Z up here. Just like so. And I can hit the download button. And there is a setup. This is the installer. I don't install it. I run the zip version, which is the portable version. Download now. And then you'll see that downloading up here in the top right corner. We'll go ahead and extract that. This is all happening while we're downloading Windows updates, by the way. Let's extract all these files here out of the zip file and into a folder. And let's run CPU-Z 64-bit edition. Give that a second. While we're waiting, I suppose I can close all this clutter. There we go. It is downloading and installing updates in the background, so it's going to be a little, responsiveness is going to be a little sluggish here. Okay, under memory, what does it say we have? It says in slot number 2, we have a 16 gig module running at 2666 speed, and slot 1 is probably empty. So this matches Sean Gallagher's experience. like I said, there's an upside and a downside either way. And if this had two 8 gig modules in it instead of 116, then dual channel memory would be turned on and you'd see a very, very minor performance increase. But trust me, on a budget machine like this, those little minor increases, if you were somebody that wants to get as much as you can get, they didn't do you a favor by putting 16 gigs in there as a single module. But if you really cared and you were sincere about wanting more performance, you'd simply buy another 16 gig module that matches this one. It doesn't have to be the same make and model, but you definitely want to have the same SPD information here. Serial presence device tells us DDR4 16 gig 2666. So if we come up to Amazon and we type here in Amazon search DDR4 16 gig 2666 SODIMM. So it's a laptop style of memory. It'll cost you, it looks like $30. Okay, and you can do it yourself for $30. Even though the manufacturer is different, they'll work just fine together as long as your specs up here match, which these do. That being said, how much extra would it cost you to simply buy the thing with 32 gigs if that's what you wanted? So if we go back to the Wowie page, which again will be on Amazon search, we'll type in Wowie P6. So this is the unit we're looking at here. And do they have a version with more RAM? You want to look down below. So this is an N150. And you really can't, you can go over 16 gigs on a 150, but it won't support dual channel. And it likely won't be able to utilize, even though you'll see 32 gigs, it likely won't utilize it. It'll just show it to you. So I definitely think this one's the, if I had a choice, I would go with the AMD model, because at $50 off, they're effectively the same price. And I do feel like you have a higher performance benefit on the Ryzen. And Mara says we've got an email. Thank you, Mara. But there are other models of Wowie that may be spec'd out the way you prefer. So if we're looking for 32 gigs of RAM, if that's what you want, here's one from Camrui that would be equivalent. Actually a much higher end CPU, which makes sense if you want higher end RAM. And it looks like $300 and you can save 7%. So that's not going to be more than about $21, about $280. So you're good, I don't know, I'd say $100 over the price of this unit here, but you're getting $100 more because you're Wi-Fi 6 instead of Wi-Fi 5, your Bluetooth 5.2, a higher end processor, more RAM. So you're exactly getting what you're paying for. You're paying more, you're getting more. So set your expectations accordingly, so that way you won't be disappointed if you have unrealistic expectations. This still seems like something's holding it up, which is bizarre. I'm going to restart it one more time because I'm confused right now. Let's see if it still comes up and tells us it's installing updates. I may not end up waiting for this while we're live. This may be something we do off camera. Whatever's holding it up, it's not a problem with the computer. There is, yeah, see, there's still updates. Something's, it's working on something. I don't know what it is. And I promise you, if I wasn't on camera, I would turn the monitor off and I would go do something else for a while. And when I come back, it'll probably be done. Being impatient can create a lot of problems. And it doesn't mean that there's a problem other than the impatience of the person. Once these updates are done, you won't have to worry about them anymore. And whatever it's doing, it's clearly doing something. It's not frozen. It's not locked up. And whatever it's doing, it's It's something pretty resource intensive, and we definitely don't want to interfere with that. It's probably important. Doman 2000 said, can you push the button install all? If it's waiting for an install, but if it says it's installing, the button doesn't work. It's already installing. The Windows operating system, unfortunately, is not, it's not perfect. So the engineers that wrote that offer the install all button when the downloads have been downloaded. But when the downloads automatically start installing, the install button still appears because the downloads had finished. And the next step is to install. But if it's already installing without you pushing the button does nothing, just so you know. You can tell right away because it'll say pending installation across all of your downloads. If you see pending installation and not a single update is installing, hit install all. But the updates can only install one at a time. So they'll all be pending once they're downloaded. They'll be pending until each one installs. So if any of your updates are installing, the install all button is inactive and won't work. I got a message from our friend Jason over at Emerald Computers. That's the computer recycling store. That's massive. And I said, would you mind if I come by? Should I make an appointment or can I just show up randomly? Because I'd like to look through some items you have that we could potentially refurbish here on camera next week. And if I'm able to fix them, you can put them on the shelf and sell them. I'll pick them up, I'll bring them back. If I break anything, I'll pay for it. If you've got computers that you'd like to see fixed that you don't think can be, hold my beer. I accept your challenge. Laptops, desktops, all-in-ones, I am very interested. I don't want the equipment. I have no desire to keep it. I want to make content with it. I want to give it back to you. I will either give it back to you in the same condition it was in because I can't fix it, or I will give it back to you completely ready to sell. And it's less work for your techs, one less computer for them to do. If you've got computers your techs worked on and they said it couldn't be fixed, want a second opinion? I'm doing it all for free. I'll get the content and you get the computers and I will pick them up and I will deliver them. And he said, yeah, come on over. So I was just answering a text from him. And yeah, I'm really excited about that because he's got some cool stuff. Hey, our friend Mark Gaines with an Amazon gift card of $25. Thank you, Mark. Whenever we get Amazon packages, I always, unless there's a problem, I always give the driver a compliment, right? There's this option that says everything was okay. And they say, you know, how was the delivery? And there's like 6 options. I check all 6 options, turn them all on. I used to think you had to pick one of the 6. No, give them 100% across the board. I never know what happens as a result of that, other than I'm guessing at the end of the day, when the delivery driver checks in, their manager or the person they report to probably said, hey, you got so many, 100% thumbs up. But because it's voluntary and many people don't even know it's an option, I think they only complain, they never compliment. So I always take a moment to compliment my drivers. They don't know it's coming from me, so it's not like I'm going to get better service. But if they don't follow my very simple delivery instructions, I make sure they know. I report that. They left the package out at the sidewalk and I told them to leave it at the front door. How hard is that? So I do both. I don't just complain, I compliment them as well. So I just had an email that Amazon delivered, and of course it was spot on. Yeah, so thanks again to our friend Buster and Dennis Hill and Charlie Purdy, Frankie B, and Mark Gaines. Thank you for your support, your generosity, your friendship. Right. I guess I should just leave these on today. I think it's going to be a glasses day today. Let's see, how are we doing over here on the desktop? Wow. Okay, look, and I cannot stress this enough. These updates are so important, Microsoft gives them to you for free. For you to avoid them and put yourself in harm's way simply because you refuse to acknowledge the dangers of the unseen internet that you choose to participate in is not a sustainable attitude. You will become a victim if you don't change your attitude. Becoming a victim will happen to you. I promise you. I can't say when, I can't tell you how long it's going to take, but you are going down a path that is not going to end well, and it's your choice. I can't imagine why anybody would make that choice. Putting these updates on a new computer, new laptop, new mini PC, something you just built, is so important you shouldn't even consider doing anything else with that computer. It's not done until the updates are in. You want to pull raw chicken out of the oven and eat it? You go knock yourself out. You keep doing that, it's just a matter of time before you're going to fall ill. And the consequences can be catastrophic. If that's the way you are, you're impatient, you're willing to take unnecessary catastrophic risk, I cannot abide by that. And I cannot recommend that that is a good thing to follow on a regular basis. I understand there could be exceptions to the rule, but overall, the best policy is do it right the first time. Slow and steady will always be faster. At the end of it all, you can get away with going faster sometimes, but you can't sustain it. But with slow and steady, it is consistent, and consistency will always win over when you're doing a lot of the same work or a lot of the same tasks. You can accurately gauge approximately how long a task should take you to complete if you always go slow and steady. But if you go fast, you never quite know, is it going to work going fast, or is it going to create a problem that then you have to diagnose, and it's going to take 3 times longer than if you would have gone slow. You want to roll those dice. I'm not telling you you can't. I'm telling you I can't afford that. I can't afford to try and schedule a customer within a window of time and then roll the dice that I'm going to be able to meet my time limit. But if I do things slow and steady, I know pretty much how long it's going to take, and I can schedule for that, and more times than not, there's no stress. Customer's not upset, their expectation was met, and I just prefer to lead as much of a stress-free life as I possibly can. You know what I'm saying? Like, whenever you're working, you're going to have stress. I have stress. I'm trying to reduce and minimize, not eliminate, the stress. If I eliminated the stress, I could be retired. If you're working, you're going to be exchanging some stress for some money. If they want me to have more stress, they need to pay me more money. If they want the prices low, they want the service fast, we keep the stress low. That's how it's all done. When 2000, sometimes I pause and resume the update. Yeah, sometimes that works. If it gets hung up on something and it's waiting to time out, you interrupt that timeout with a pause and you restart it again, which is what it will do when it reaches the end of the timeout. That's all you're doing. Yeah, that can sometimes get you through it, sometimes not. That's why I say it's, for me anyway, I just like to follow whatever the computer wants to do. Updates where you see that spinning circle and it's taking a while, I honestly have no idea what it's doing, but from my experience, it is doing something, and if you leave it alone, it will complete. There's no reason for it to take any longer than it needs to take. There's no benefit in Microsoft doing that. If there is some sort of timeout waiting before, it's best, in my opinion, to just let it time itself out. Either way, it's the end result is going to be more stable, more consistently, than trying to fight with it and force it. Impatience is, in my opinion, a disease that affects the individual and only affects the individual, and maybe people around them that suffer the toxicity of that level of intolerance. I think to put yourself in a more mindful, less stressful place for your own sanity, let alone the consideration of the people around you. There are books you can buy that teach you how to slow down or how to process the information and retrain your brain so you're not doing this to yourself. No matter how I feel about this, I'm not going to make it any faster. I may not like it, but I'm not going to change it. And the attempts that I make to try and speed it up could possibly speed it up or cause it to start all over again, losing all the progress we've made. And my frame of mind is, I would rather just bite the bullet, stay out of its way. I've asked it to do something. And I would tell a boss the same thing. If a boss is asking me to do a task, get out of my way and let me do the task. Don't micromanage me. Don't tell me how to, don't breathe down the back of my neck. Get out of my way. Let me do my job. When I'm done and you want to evaluate my work, that's fine, but don't do it while I'm working. Causes stress, anxiety, slows me down because I got you on my peripheral vision breathing down my neck, and I may not be 100% focused on what I'm doing because I'm too self-conscious about what you're seeing and what you're thinking. Go away, let me do my job. If I want that from my boss, then how do you think I'm going to be to my employees? I see this as my employee. I just told it to do some work. Now, I want to do exactly for that what I want from my boss, which is leave it alone and let it work. That's the way I see it. Now, at a scale of business that I have, there's never a circumstance where I'm sitting here doing this in real life. This is a consequence of a live unscripted video. In the real world, while this is updating, I'm doing something else. If you look around the studio, there's hundreds of things waiting to be done. Different levels of priority and different moods I'm in on what I want to do next. So depending on the priority or the mood, that's what I'll do. And sometimes what I need to do is the administrative stuff. And while Mara is helping out massively in that, the administrative part of the business is a lot of it. That's the paperwork, it's the emails, it's the billing, it's the receivables. It's, when it comes to YouTube, it's finding some sponsors or shopping on Amazon for things that we might be able to showcase here that we can afford to buy, such as the router we showed off yesterday. These things kind of happen because I set aside time, or Mara has done the work in order to locate these devices. Other times, units like this, they come in from a request. Would you evaluate this for us? So, while another machine, ironically, may be sitting here updating, I'm already answering an email, or Mara is asking me questions if I'm interested in evaluating something so that we can start planning for shows in the future while this is still happening down here. And I may even have something else happening in the other room, such as the testing we're doing on the NASs. That's been going on now for about 2 weeks. Almost done. The good news is we are beating the heck out of these NASs and they're just sailing through it without any problem. I'm, knock on wood, I'm not jinxing myself, but I fully expect that this experience is going to be a positive one. And while there is a faster way for me to test the NASs, it's definitely not as resource intensive and hard on the NAS. So by pushing it in the most difficult way possible, it takes more time. But when the NAS comes out smelling like roses, that's awesome. And it means I have to do less work. I basically, instead of completely resetting the NAS, I just change one drive out and say rebuild and expand the array to the bigger drive. And then it takes about 2 days. And then I put the next drive in. And yeah, you can put multiple drives in if you're expanding the array, but I'm repairing and then expanding it, which is very intense work. And it wouldn't be done day after day after day the way I'm doing it. So like we are slamming on these NASs hard because we want to see in a worst case scenario, how do they perform? Perfectly. I'm talking the 925 Synologies with the script. Everything's running exactly the way you would expect it to, but now I'm verifying that that's true. And so far, the 1825 is done, and the 1525 is on its last upgraded drive. So out of 15 drives, 2 NASs, without basically doing any work, you just slide the drive in and click the button. There's faster ways if I wanted to do more hands-on, but to just let the unit off, I just ignore it. Check in on it once a day. How's it doing? Oh, it's ready for the next drive. I'm in no hurry. I wouldn't do this for a customer. With customers, you've got to prioritize and get things done quickly. But when we're testing, the longer and more torturous the test, the more accurate the test results. So there are 2 very different reactions to how we go about problem solving. If it's for a live customer running a business versus if we're doing lab testing. And this would qualify under lab testing. Still updating. Look at that. Okay. So if anybody has any questions about mini PCs, about this mini PC, or computer questions, computer related questions, particularly over problems you're trying to solve, or I don't know, an understanding issue perhaps of some of the technology you don't get, let us know in the chat. If we cannot answer your question, if it's like a very complex answer, we can point you where to go to find that answer. We can recommend some places that may be a good start for you. Dennis mentions having 16 gigs of RAM is more than enough for what I use it for. Yeah, again, so the internet is filled with people that just want more, and you ask them why, and they can't justify it. They'll say, because I use it. Show me you're using it. In most cases, when they show you, they're somewhere between 12 gigs of RAM in use upwards to 26. It's pretty rare to see anybody take a screenshot where they're over 32. So they might have 96 gigs of RAM, but they're never using 96 gigs of RAM. Out of 1,000 people that have 96 gigs of RAM, on average, 1 of them actually uses it. The others are just buying it because they can, and it's feeling an emotional need. And that's okay, but let's just be honest about it. Again, with this having 16 gigs, if it wasn't enough and you wanted to add another 16, because they put a 16 gig module, instead of spending $60, it's only going to cost you $30, because you only need to buy 1 RAM module instead of 2. So pros and cons, depending on how you choose to see it. Matt's all out said, Carey, I tried to send a contribution. It doesn't work from here. Maybe next time. Huh. Yeah, I'm not quite sure there's much we can do about it if it's PayPal or Amazon or Super Chat. But you've been very generous with us. I certainly never expect anything from you. If we get something, it's nice and we appreciate it. And if we don't, we're not disappointed. We appreciate that you tried, though. If I knew something, I could tell you what to do. I have no idea. But hopefully whatever it is will resolve itself. So Sean says he bought 150 of these. How many have gone bad? I'm just curious, out of the 150 of these you purchased. I would imagine if you bought 150 of them, you must like them. The Greenie mentions when he asked to speak with the supervisor at Leon Lee regarding his RMA request, they're not going to talk to you over the phone. I can already tell you that. However, I would reach out on Twitter if I were you. I think you may find a very different answer on their Twitter page. If you want to. I mean, I understand if you're like, it's not worth it. But if you do want to pursue it, if I were you, I would pursue it publicly on Twitter so the world can see it. I think your response will be very different. I could be wrong. That's what I would do. Sean Gallagher said of the 150 of these he's ordered, none of them have gone bad. Well, that's some high praise. Scott says, great stream. Thank you, Carey and Mara. Thank you, Scott. Gary Tatum said he's using 3 gig out of 32 gig. So you're set pretty well then, Gary. Ohio Catfishing says, have you serviced many PCs? We've serviced a handful. I had an Intel NUC with a fan that was going out. I had another Intel NUC that was randomly crashing, and it turned out it was a very difficult thing to figure out because it was intermittent. It happened sometimes it didn't. And I think it turned out to be a RAM module. That was a really, really frustrating problem to diagnose. We have about 2 mini PCs that have failed, no, 3 out of like 300 that are bad, and they're not worth fixing. There's something, some component, could be a little tiny capacitor on the board that failed, and the time involved in extracting the board and the magnification equipment and hot air soldering tools would cost 3 times more than what the mini PC cost. Because they're so inexpensive, repair doesn't really matter. Honestly, they're so inexpensive now. When you bought a $1,000 or $1,500 desktop computer back in the 90s, you needed to be able to repair that. And the quality of the components is nowhere near as good as the quality of components today. So the odds of needing repair are far more reduced now because of the manufacturing processes being so much better. But it's not a perfect world. Normally with electronic items, if you're going to have a problem with it, it'll happen within the first 30 days. That's the return period for Amazon. If you don't have a problem with it in the first 30 days and you haven't dropped it or abused it or spilled something on it, you are likely going to have that computer. That computer will likely last longer than you and I will. It may not be useful, but it'll still function. Because they're so inexpensive, the cost of this mini computer is effectively 1 hour of my time. So you can pay me an hour of my time and wait and hope it gets repaired correctly, plus the price of parts, and then maybe get a 30-day warranty on the repair. Or you could buy another one for the same price as an hour of labor, have it today, have a brand new warranty, and be done. That's why repair doesn't make any sense until you reach a certain value. When the value far exceeds the cost of repair, then it makes sense to repair it. But when you're buying a disposable Bic lighter for 99 cents, are you going to refill it? Are you going to modify it and spend the time to try and put butane back in it? It's dangerous, time consuming. It's just $1. Buy another one. You'll have a new flint. You won't have any issues with it. Not likely. It's disposable. Disposable usually refers to price, not to the unit's quality, just so we're clear. Sean Gallagher said, I had a friend review these too, and they like them as well. There you go. An unbiased feedback.
We've had other Wowie machines and we've liked them. That's why when Wowie asked if we'd look at this one, we did not know that it would be $80 off. And I didn't want to wait to review this because then you guys wouldn't be getting such a great deal. So I want you to be aware that is I don't know when that coupon goes away. That is purely coincidence. And if you're interested, I wouldn't hesitate because there's no telling, even while I'm talking, that coupon could go away. I don't know how long it's there. Just so you know. Or they could run out of inventory. I don't know. Just telling it like it is. Let me look through the chat here. RLD in the chat says, I mean if I plug my computer hard drive to my laptop. He didn't say anything before that, and he didn't say anything after. Does anybody know what was said before this? Or did I say something? It's like someone said, okay, but only if you agree. I agree to what? What are we talking about? When you guys do post your messages, it would help comprehension and communication if you would put anything you're referring to into the same message before you hit enter, okay? Because I do want to answer your questions, but first I have to understand them. I'm not quite sure how you would respond if I did that to you. So I would imagine you'd be just as confused as I am. So if I'm not answering your questions, it may be because you haven't actually asked one. You might think you did. Barry Klein joining us says hello. There he is. Let's check on this. How are we doing? Are we still updating over here or what? Hey, it finally finished. All right, now it still may be doing updates in the background. I don't know what it's doing, to be honest, but it was doing something because clearly it's finished. All right. Let's go to Crystal Disk Mark. Right up here. And, you know, if it is actually doing more updates in the background, then these numbers will not be accurate. Let's just take a quick look at our top sequential read speed and top sequential write speed. That's all I care about. We're never going to get higher than 3600. I'll tell you right now, it's not possible. And we're just over 3600, which is surprising. Let's see how far it'll go. Because PCI Generation 3 has a maximum of 4,000 gigabits per second, which equates to, well, you'd think 4,000 megabytes, but it doesn't quite work out that way because of overhead parity checking and the communications protocols that are involved in the data. So at 3649, what I should have said is we would see more than 3,700. I honestly did not expect us to exceed 3,600, but clearly it's possible. It's pretty rare for a Gen 3 drive to run that quickly. So that's a great benefit to this. Again, at 3649, that's a very, very high read speed. You're definitely not going to hit 3,700 on any Generation 3 drive on the market. As far as I know, it's not possible, not without caching. And on the write speed, it's a little bit slower. That's pretty typical, 2513. So overall, it's very good, much better than I expected it to be. Let me shut it down and let's take the bottom off and take a look inside and we'll see if it's a boy or a girl. All right, so hold on. We'll wait for this to power off. And I'll get my screwdriver out. And I'll definitely need my glasses for those little tiny screws. The light is off, the unit's off. Never open a computer or work on a computer with the power cable plugged in. Unless you're Evel Knievel. That screwdriver is too big. So I'm gonna have to use, yeah, maybe this one. Nope. Okay, well, when this happens, we bring out the big boy tools. This one looks pretty good right here. I'll pair it with this guy. Nope, that one's too little. The other ones are too big. That one's too little. Let's find a bigger one. Oh, I bet you that's the one right there. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I would not have been able to do that without glasses. Now, sometimes Wi-Fi antennas or other things could be attached to the lid that you're removing. So when we go to remove this lid without knowing what's under it, be very cautious and gentle. Don't put a lot of force on it. Just see if you're getting any resistance from anything. And in this case, you could see you've got the bay for a 2.5-inch drive to go in here. Could be mechanical or SSD, but you've got no venting. There's 0 holes in this. You will trap heat in here. You could probably boil an egg in there if you wanted to do that. I wouldn't recommend it. They give you the option to harm yourself if you choose to. I would connect via USB. I would never put a drive inside. In the unit itself, there's our NVMe drive. There's our single RAM module made by GoFat2. I can't tell what that says. You know what? Let's just unplug it and bring it up to the camera. You read it to me. Carey, you've offended me. I'm just reading what it said. Here, you read it. Now you can offend me. There's our battery for the BIOS. There's that little connector for plugging in the optional connector for plugging in the 2.5-inch drive if you want to torture yourself. Underneath this drive, if you look under it, you'll see our Wi-Fi card. So if you did want to upgrade the Wi-Fi into this, aside from purchasing a Wi-Fi adapter you could plug into USB, you could theoretically take the NVMe drive out, take that one screw out, and then underneath there'll be another very similarly shaped circuit board that's shorter. It goes in a very similar way, but it has 2 antennas that snap on. If you want to go through that, it's an option. If you want to add another 16 gigs of RAM, just snaps in right there, and your upgrade is that easy. You would never need to take out the board because the other side of this is your heatsink and your CPU. There's nothing user serviceable on this side of it. I should hold it up this way. There's no holes up here either. All the ventilation that's coming off the CPU is coming out through this heatsink right here, which is the opposite end of where you're putting your storage and RAM. You have very little airflow, no fans, no cooling in here, other than just a little bit of ventilation here on the sides. That is just the natural flow of air. Nothing's forcing air through. It's very passive. As a result, by trapping more heat inside of here by adding a 2.5-inch drive, it's not going to work out well for you in the long run. And if you're that cheap and you insist, I'm telling you, just get yourself an $8 SATA cable to USB cable and plug it into one of your USB ports. It will run the same speed without the issues. Okay? Just a little advice from your Uncle Carey. Overall, a very simple design. Super easy to get into, very upgradable. And with that $80 off price, if anybody's aware of a better deal for a cheaper price, please share that with us. Honestly, I'm being sincere. I don't think a better deal exists. And if one does, I want to know about it. Now, did I take this off this way or this way? Yeah, I guess this pull tab goes towards the back. Any other questions that we can answer? Did I look at the CPU temps? I didn't because I wasn't hearing any fans. Also, Sean Gallagher in the chat room says they purchased 150 of these and never mentioned anything about heat problems. And I asked him if he liked them, and I asked him if they had any problems. I wasn't specifying heat. He said none. Out of 150, they're all flawless. So I'm not quite sure why we would need to look at the temps. If the fans were getting loud, that would be one thing. Is it possible those updates were taking a long time because the updates were causing the CPU to overheat? Then the CPU was throttling? Maybe that's why you're asking. That's a valid question. I haven't owned the computer long enough or experienced it long enough to determine if there is other slow behavior under resource-intensive tasks. But I also did not hear the fan speed up. Is it possible that the fan is not working correctly or the BIOS isn't set correctly, and that's why the fan's not speeding up? That's usually found on user-built machines that need configuration. It is not typical or normal for a machine to come from a system integrator misconfigured. It's possible, but highly unlikely. So we can fire it back up and we can look at the temps, but I suspect it's a big waste of time. But until we verify it, I could be wrong. But there's usually other indicators. And the thing is, I've seen other Windows updates, even on super high-end machines like this, that seemingly take forever. And it has nothing necessarily to do with the computer's performance so much as the way Microsoft is applying their updates. I've seen it take high-end machines down to their knees, and then once the update's done, the machine's a rocket ship again. I don't know why. Something to do with how Microsoft is applying the updates is all I can establish. Because with everything else, the machines are absolutely lightning quick, and it's only certain updates that bring it down to its knees and make it feel like it's not working right. So you can imagine on a lesser end machine, it's only going to be worse. But let's plug it in. Let's take a look. I'll grab my HDMI cable and my Ethernet cable again. And we'll plug these back in. There we go. And then I need power. Here we go. Hopefully, yeah, there we go. We get the WoW power on self-test. Andy said, I'm addicted to minis. Dennis says, yeah, I'm just curious. Fair enough. I'm not curious because it didn't cause me any reason to be. But usually I need a reason to go looking. You know what I mean? I don't just go looking for trouble unless there's some sense of trouble to be found. But just out of the sake of curiosity, let's open this up. And let's go over to our hardware info. Oh, I got to use the right mouse. Hardware info right here. And 64. So sensors only. Start. And if we take a look just where we're idling, pretty much just kind of sitting here for temperatures. So we only have 4 cores. We're looking at around the 40s. Anywhere between the 30s and 40s is considered normal. 50s and above at idle is a little high. If we come over to Cinebench and we bring this up and run it on a torture test, which this isn't designed to do, but it'll do it, we can see what those temps go to. Start the test. And so this warms up for 10 minutes before the test runs. And these are our current temps here on the left. These are our minimum temps since we started the software monitoring here in the middle. And off to the right, the maximum column is what I'm most interested in keeping an eye on. We'll usually see the highest temp within the first 2 minutes of this test. So we're only about 30 seconds in. And looks like 70 is about the maximum. We're seeing, I see 75 up here, but it's still going to get a little bit hotter as this test continues until it hits about the 7-minute mark. After that, whatever is the peak is probably all it's going to be. I can hear the fan now. Now that it's really busting out, it's not loud, but it's louder than it was. It's still pretty quiet though. And I can definitely feel the air kicking out of the back of it. When I put my hand behind the Mini, I can feel the air 12 inches away. So it's got a nice cooling system. What else can I tell you about this machine? I think what we, you know what? It's a 1-year warranty, 30-day return policy, and lifetime 24-hour, 7-day-a-week tech support through email. Windows 11 Pro. Compare this to an N150 or an N100. It offers better multi-threading performance and stronger graphics capabilities. It delivers superior performance in retro gaming compared to an N150 or N100. Additionally, it features uncompromised cooling with copper heat pipes. Unlike the aluminum heat pipes and fans typically found in entry-level mini PCs, this is a full copper solution, and it features a USB-C port that supports 4K output, which again, at the entry-level point, is pretty uncommon. So there's just a few things to keep in mind. And if I jump back over here, just want to see where we're at. Well, I think we're looking at the peak because now we're just at about 7 minutes. That means the test has been running for 3 minutes with 7 remaining. And that's pretty much all you're going to see. That's it. I'd say the temps on this are outstanding. I'm going to let this finish, but I want to come back to camera 1 in the meantime because I don't need to sit there and watch it draw up boxes. And let me go back over to the chat and see if there's any last questions, or we're going to wrap it up for this Friday show. Andy says, boy, that looks just like the P5. Yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot of difference between a P5 and a P6. They probably have more in common than they have different. Maybe just a CPU change. Dennis says it looks like it sips power as well. Yeah, I'm not sure what the power draw is. I think the information is on the Amazon page, but anytime you're dealing with mini PCs, you're going to deal with low power consumption. They're more energy efficient because they're using mobile chips. Mobile chips designed to run off batteries, right? So it makes sense that when you plug it in, it's more efficient. Dennis and Andy say, thanks for opening it up and showing us the inside. My pleasure. It was easy to open up, super easy. I wish they could all be that easy, to be honest. So definitely a thumbs up and Uncle Carey's approval, stamp of approval on this one, especially with that $80 coupon. I don't know how you could, you could ask for any more for any less in exchange. That's a pretty good deal on the consumer side. Not quite sure how much money they could be making on that, especially when you consider it's got to be boxed and shipped, and that's not free. And they're including that at no additional cost if you order it at Amazon. How much money do you think they're making on this? I guarantee it's not $150. There's not $150 profit in a $150 item. I don't know. I don't know how that math works. Seems a little bit like they're losing money on it, but what do I know? I know they're not making much. If they are making anything, it's got to be dollars, a couple of bucks. Andy says, thanks for the great reviews. Well, thanks, Andy. Thanks for being a part of our community and for hanging out with us today, as well as everybody else. Thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for your super chat, your memberships, and your Amazon gift cards, PayPal. That's what's keeping us alive. We don't have traditional sponsorships here. I would like to avoid them. I don't want to be told what I can tell you or what I can't tell you. I want to be honest and direct with you, the same as I am with paying customers. In order for that to happen, the bills that require a studio and electricity and internet and everything else, they have to still get paid. We're just trying to find another way to pay the bills that we're not selling out. And we're doing that through our memberships. If you guys want to see more content like this, please help us. If you don't care one way or the other and you don't mind just watching commercials, then I don't want to do it anyway. If that's what you want, I have no interest in that, because quite frankly, there's an overabundance of that kind of material online, and I don't want to be a part of it. So at the end of the day, people will pick and choose, and that will ultimately decide the fate of this channel versus a sponsor. See, the problem when you take on a sponsor is if they go down and you're relying on them, you go down right along with them. So I'd rather fail on my own for my own reasons than because of somebody else and their reasons. I'm just funny that way. And without the members, today's video would not have been possible. Without Wowie offering to send us the unit in exchange for a fair review, no contracts, no NDA, no non-disclosure agreement, no show it to us first before you show it to your audience. We don't do any of that here. Pretty much everybody else does. We do not do that here. And we can afford that. They cannot afford it. We can afford it because we have our members. Hand in hand. So we can't thank our members enough for allowing us to continue and not having to succumb to the, be beholden to a corporation's wishes and desires. And if we say no, they walk away with the money and leave us completely destitute. I don't want to be in that position ever. And so with that, of course, thanks to Mara for all the work she does on our thumbnails, the video description. The links for this are in the video notes below the video. Thanks to our friends at Wowie for trusting us with the review and having enough faith in their product that they don't feel they have to control the review anyway. They got something solid here. Let it speak for itself. If you can't trust it to speak for itself, I don't necessarily need to know anything else about you or your product, if that's how you feel about it. And again, with members, we can choose to buy the product and review it whether they like it or not, which is another thing many channels cannot afford to do. So most channels are nothing more than commercials, for better or for worse. Personally, I've had enough of it. And rather than complain about it, I'm doing something to change that. And you guys have options. All right, and we'll see how it all plays out, but I hope we're still standing at the end of it all and the commercials don't end up being the winner. Man, it's an interesting situation on social media right now, because with all the shorts videos, those are all just commercials. You remember commercials, right? You used to fast forward past them. Now kids want to watch commercials. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It is so bizarre. You know you're watching commercials. I watched the Super Bowl for the commercials. Maybe it's something like that. I don't know. All right, guys. Thank you again. Thank you to everybody. Frankie B, Buster, Charlie Purdy, Mark Gaines. Thank you, Dennis Hill. Thank you for your contributions and your support. Thank you to all the members. We will be back again on Sunday And hopefully I'll have some time to hit up Emerald Computers between now and then, I hope. And then I'll see how much stuff I can take, what variety. I'm super excited if you can't tell. Because here, we're not dealing with any sponsorship. We're not spending any money. They're not paying us. And yet we're getting all this great content. And then when we're done with it, we give it back to them. And we don't have to deal with, where am I going to put this? How am I going to get rid of it? So hopefully we'll have something on Sunday in that regard. Either way, I should be back with something on Sunday. I don't know what it is yet. But we have a couple other projects that are waiting if I'm in the mood to do them. And we have another mini PC next week from Riatin. That's the opposite of this, where this is budget. Next week we'll do a higher end, still affordable, but much higher end machine. And then we also have, oh, there's something I'm forgetting. Something else next week we've got to do. And then we're also expecting some more items to come in, but we don't know when they come in, including the new NAS from Arico. We don't know. I guess it's been shipped. We don't know when we're going to get it. And we ordered that on Kickstarter. We paid $800 for that with our membership money, so we have the content that you guys pay for better or for worse. And then we have the Nano KVM Pros coming in. And then Comet has their new Pro version, which is not yet available for pre-order, but should be soon. We're on their mailing list, and we intend to, again, use the membership funding to pay for one or two of those and get it on pre-order because, well, the GLINet Comet is not my favorite KVM. I did pre-order it, and they did deliver. So I'm not afraid that, you know, they're just going to take the money and run. I know they're going to ship me a product. And I'm hoping that it'll be more competitive in the marketplace than the Comet. But the Comet Pro looks really good. What do you got in your hands?
Came quick.
Is that another mini PC?
It is.
Okay. So we have that. Oh, I know what we've got. The folks over at Gigamundo sent us a 2 terabyte NVMe drive. They'd like us to test it. I'm not quite sure how we're going to test that. I'm thinking maybe we combine that with the Riatin high-end machine and swap it out, you know, just to see the numbers on it. But Gigamundo is basically, I think it's a Rico, just under a different name. So if you're looking for a high-performance, aggressively priced NVMe drive, I believe Gigamundo, if it's what I think it is just another name for a Rico. Then we expect the same quality, we expect the same warranty, we expect the same performance. Until we test it, I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure it's just the same product with a different name. I could be wrong. And I'm not quite sure that in and of itself is its own video, but again, it's more stuff that we have to look at and figure out how it applies with other content we've got to make. And they're not paying us to review it. They've sent us the unit, they're asking for a review. Fair enough, we'll get to it. If you guys have any questions or concerns about it, please let us know so we can address that in the video. I intend to get to it one way or another next week. That's going to wrap it up for me for today. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a safe weekend. Have a happy weekend. And we'll see you back here on Sunday, 1 o'clock as always. Until next time, bye for now.